Here's Brody Brazil.
I feel like as recently as about 12 to 24 months ago, expansion for Major League Baseball was basically a lock. Here's the 30 teams. They were definitely going to get to 32. They wanted to capitalize on expansion fees in two different markets. They had a lot of potential markets that were willing, able, and ready to join Major League Baseball. However, I'm here to say right now, it feels like expansion for Major League Baseball by two teams is at least off by a handful of years. I don't think this is going to happen in the 2020s at all. Now, going back to expansion being a lock, it was always said that as soon as the A's and Rays were settled, that baseball would grow to 32 teams. And that was kind of a common assumption, and Rob Manfred even commented on that in July of 2023. He said, quote, "I hope pretty shortly thereafter, like when the A's and Rays were sorted out, we would put together an expansion committee and start talking internally first about the issues associated with expansion." He went on to say, obviously, there are economic issues. You're talking about diminishing the central revenue available to the 30 teams, making it 32. You got to figure out the impact of that, and then you got to think about what you would be looking for in terms of an expansion fee in order to offset that. Now, I should also let you know that expansion fees in baseball were always viewed at somewhere in the $2 million range, but recently with the NBA's potential expansion, that number seems to be more like $3 or $4 million, or even all the way up to $7 million for an expansion fee of an NBA team. So obviously baseball's going to wait a little bit longer because of their own internal issues, the A's and the Rays and TV stuff, which I'm about to get into. But I also think they want to pay attention to the expansion fee and the valuation of current NBA teams as they figure out their own expansion fee. Okay, let's get to the status of the A's and Rays. And again, this is not the only thing I think holding expansion back. By the way, that is the whole point of this video. Expansion seemed like a lock for two teams within the next 3 to 4 years, but it now seems like 2028, 2029 are nowhere close. I think we're talking more like mid-2030s here for expansion at the very earliest. So the A's look like this. They're going to play in Sacramento for 2025 and 3, maybe 4 years in total. They're expecting that Las Vegas groundbreaking is going to take place in the first quarter of 2025, but they've also said, don't worry if it happens after that. The A's are trying to land in Las Vegas by 2028, but they are still lacking a private funding plan and promise, and there's a lot of questions surrounding the development at the former Tropicana Hotel. Bally's as a partner, they're also having financial issues. They're also supposed to develop the rest of that property, but now it seems like maybe they won't be doing that. So there remains a lot of question about the A's, and a lot of that is logistical and financial. And then there's the Tampa Bay Rays, who just had Hurricane Milton about a month ago rip through Florida, rip the roof right off of Tropicana Field. That stadium is now in tremendous trouble. They don't know whether they'll replace the roof, if the Rays are going to be displaced to a minor league stadium somewhere else in Florida for the time being, but a temporary home seems absolutely necessary for them to start 2025. In the meantime, they do have that new stadium approved for right next door to Tropicana Field in the gas plant district, but there's also a large looming question of their own private funding plan. So two teams with a lot of approvals, but haven't exactly squared away the private financials of their plans, and that leaves these two teams still with a lot of questions. As much as one or the other could or should be a done deal, or both of them could be a done deal, that's not the only reason why Major League Baseball is kind of having to pause here on even the notion of expansion. There's already issues going on here, other issues regarding television deals, and Major League Baseball recently took over the rights, the television rights for 3 teams in 2024, the San Diego Padres, the Colorado Rockies, and the Arizona Diamondbacks, meaning that those teams had lost their TV partners, and because of it, they lost a lot of money, which we'll get into, and so Major League Baseball took over the broadcasts and the production and the distribution of their games on television. But just within the last couple months, 11 Major League Baseball teams lost their television deals with Bally Sports, which has now changed names into FanDuel Sports, I think the different regional networks across the country. But the thing is this, most of those deals between the networks and the teams, they were worth about $50 to $125 million per season per team. And that's why I think a team like the Minnesota Twins is now suddenly up for sale. They realize the business model, their revenue, their way of doing business, their way of getting income and then paying for players is largely about to change. And I think we're going to see an impact here on MLB free agency and less spending as soon as like now. This upcoming winter, this upcoming offseason, if you've got basically a third of Major League Baseball teams losing their television deals and money, now they will have TV deals. It's just not going to be for as much as they used to get. And so how will they play the payroll part of this? How much will they spend? How will their business models change if they don't have those regional deals in place? Baseball, in terms of value and revenue, here's how it stacks up compared to other sports leagues. And I got to tell you, baseball could be a number 2 right behind the NFL, which is king, no doubt. You've got a team like the Dallas Cowboys worth north of $10 billion is their valuation, but still the average NFL team is worth almost $6 billion. Right behind that is basketball. Teams are worth on average about $4 billion. The Warriors, I think, are worth $8 billion. And well behind that is Major League Baseball. In fact, baseball is not only 3, baseball is pretty close to being number 4 right next to the NHL. Now you can see baseball does okay in terms of the average revenue transposed on the average value. But if you also look at the haves and have-nots of Major League Baseball, it is a little bit concerning. There's 5 major market teams, and then there's everybody else to kind of skew the numbers a lot lower. So it's not to say that baseball teams aren't doing okay, but they're also not valued as highly as others are across professional sports. If and when baseball does choose to expand, it will have been a while since they've done this. The last time baseball added some teams was 1998. In fact, the Rays and Diamondbacks were the last 2 teams to be added. Back then, the expansion fee, $130 million. A little bit different than the 2 or 4 or 5 or 7 per team that they might get this time around. And in fact, it's crazy because in 98, they added 2 teams. And in 2001, Major League Baseball owners voted almost unanimously in favor of contracting by 2 teams. They were ready to get rid of the Twins and Expos, and the Twins stadium deal at the Metrodome actually saved the day and kept those 2 teams. Now, I say a likely $2 billion expansion fee per team. I also should have put a question mark next to that. That's the last number that everybody's talked about, but don't hold baseball to it if that number goes way north. If it was that $2 billion expansion fee, every team would be getting $133.3 million of revenue, basically enough to float you maybe a payroll for one season or make up for a couple years of the TV deals that you weren't getting. Baseball would be inclined to do this, but I don't know if they're absolutely ready to do this because of a lot of the uncertainties, or maybe they are. Maybe they're more willing to kick this into gear because they're seeing that they're losing money in some other places. Rob Manfred, before all this, had basically said that he wanted to get expansion in place by 2029 because that's when his term as commissioner is ending. That's when he's going to step back and retire. Quote, "I have never identified particular cities as targets. We need an Eastern time zone and either a Mountain or Western time zone city, just in terms of making the format work in the best possible way. I truly believe we're going to have multiple candidates in both categories." And I'll put the list of candidates here on your screen. I think you're familiar with all these. Salt Lake City's got $900 million from the state of Utah ready to go for a ballpark. Portland just secured some land. Obviously, Oakland would love to get a team back. They've got the proper private investors. They've probably got the land situations, either at Howard Terminal or the Coliseum to get that done. Charlotte and Montreal, for different reasons, want in. Montreal wants back in. Nashville has long been after a team. In fact, for a lot of years, they've been considered a front runner out east. And then maybe a little bit off the map would be going to Mexico City. Not off the map, just out of the continental United States. Mexico City would be another option, and something that the NBA is also considering. Would Major League Baseball put one team in Canada and one team in Mexico in addition to the rest here in the United States? So it's my thought and my opinion that baseball was close to expansion, but because of uncertainty with the A's and Rays, and maybe because of some uncertainty with streaming deals and the loss of money per teams, maybe they want to take on some more money, but maybe they're just not ready to add that complication here into the mix unless the value is right, the expansion fee is right. How is the timing of that going to go? What are the valuations of these teams going to be here now that the tides and winds are definitely changing? You've made it here to the end of this video. I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below greatly helps me and this video and this channel. I would also really appreciate it if you take one quick second, go down there and make sure you are already subscribed to this channel. That way I can definitely see you back here next time.